This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on May the 26th, 2023. And folks, we have an awesome guest on the show with me today. Yeah, straight out of, if I remember correctly, Las Vegas, Nevada?
You got it.
There you go. It's funny, I had a guest on from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas yesterday, so we were talking a little bit about that. So, folks, we got one of the stars of Spider Baby on the show with me today. Folks, I give you the lovely and with beautiful red hair, Beverly Washburn. How do you do, Beverly?
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for having me on your show. This is cool.
I love the red hair.
Well, thank you. It's been this way for a couple of years because I was blonde in Spider Baby, but that was over 50 years ago.
Oh, come on, you're
Yeah.
39.
Yeah,
There you
thank you.
go.
I love you already.
You know, no, it's great to have you. What's it like in Las Vegas right now?
It's a little toasty. We're in the desert, so it does get hot here, and we're having kind of an early summer, it seems. It's only spring and it's already in the 90s, but it was very cold here a few weeks ago, which is people think it only gets hot here, but we get it cold too. Not Canada cold, but we get it cold.
There you go. Well, before we get into Spider Baby and any of your other credits like Old Yeller and whatnot, I would like to get a little bit of your background and what got you into the business.
Okay. Well, I started actually as a child modeling children's clothes, and I had an agent, and I went on countless auditions, but I never got the part because I had no experience whatsoever. But my older sister, Audrey, was an acrobat, and she used to do this act and go around to the various hospitals, veterans hospitals, and I would kind of follow her around. And this one time when I was there, I was like 6, I believe, and Jock Mahoney was there, and people will remember him as the range rider and Yancey Derringer. So he was this big, handsome cowboy, and I was 6 years old, and I was mesmerized by him. So a few months later, I was on yet another audition, and as fate would have it, Jock Mahoney walked through the lobby. He was under contract to Columbia at the time, and he asked my mother why I was there, and she told him that I was reading for this role. And he said, I'll be right back. Well, we found out later that he went into the producer and casting director and said, oh, this kid's great. She's done this, she's done that. I actually hadn't done a thing. So as the story goes, he lied. They believed him, and they gave me the part just because they liked him and they took his word for it. So it's kind of that catch 22. They don't want to hire you if you don't have any experience, but how do you get that experience, unless they take a chance on you? So it was for a movie called The Killer That Stalked New York with Evelyn Keyes and Dorothy Malone.
Mhm.
And so it was a speaking role. So after I had that first speaking role, then it was easier to go on from there because then on my next audition, I could say that I had just done something. So that's how it all began.
So, were you nervous doing that speaking role, or did you just
No,
go in? Yeah.
no, I really wasn't. As a child, I had a vivid imagination, and my best friend Joni, who was my neighbor and still my best friend for all these years, we used to play games and pretend that we were somebody else. I pretended that I was Debbie Reynolds, and she pretended that she was Jane Powell, and we had imaginary boyfriends, kind of like now. No, just kidding. So we would just play, these things. So for me, doing that little movie role, it was just like pretending that I was somebody else. So it was fun for me. So I wasn't nervous.
Okay. And of course, Dorothy Malone, you get to work with her.
Beautiful lady. Yes, yes. And Evelyn Keyes.
Hmm.
And of course, at the time, I was way too young to know who she was and that she was famous or anything. So that was my first role. They've been showing it on some of the old retro stations. I guess it's kind of a film noir type thing. And anyway, and then from there, I just went on to other things like Here Comes the Groom with Bing Crosby and Hans Christian Andersen with Danny Kaye and The Greatest Show on Earth with Jimmy Stewart and Superman and the Mole Man with
Hmm.
George Reeves and um, Shane with Alan Lance. So I was fortunate. I just kind of segued into that, and then TV took over, and I was blessed because then I started doing some TV shows. So
Well, here come the groom. Of course, you got to work with Frank Capra. Now,
I
I've
know.
been very fortunate. I had Catherine Grimes on, who was the girl who said the famous line, "Every time you hear a bell
Oh,
ring, an angel
I
gets its
love it.
wings. It's a
Yes,
wonderful life." Yep.
Carolyn, yes, we're friends. In fact, we just did a little convention festival in Marshfield, Missouri. It was called the Cherry Blossom Festival, and she was there. She's just darling. I love her.
Yeah. So Frank Capra, of course, have done movies like that, and of course, It's a Wonderful Life is a masterpiece. And of course, you worked with him, and here come the groom. What was your impressions of him?
Well, Greg, I was so young. I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't have a clue who Frank Capra was or Bing Crosby or anything. And it wasn't until I became an adult, really, that I look back over my career and realized how blessed and fortunate I was because I was directed by Frank Capra and George Stevens and Cecil B. DeMille. But at the
Hmm.
time, I didn't appreciate it because I didn't, I was too young to get it, but I do get it now. And so I feel very grateful that I had those opportunities.
Yeah, and of course, you Superman versus Superman the Mole Man, and
Yeah. George, yeah, I was so young. I thought he really was Superman. So for me, I didn't know who George Reeves was, but I, of course, knew who Superman was. So I never claimed to be a bright child. So I thought he really was Superman, but it was fun to work with him.
there you go. Well, I've got a lot of questions about Spider Baby coming up, and of course Pit Stop because I've had Jack Hill on earlier this
Oh,
year, and I was very lucky to get him on here,
yes.
and we had some Zoom problems too.
Oh, that happens, I know, and I'm so technically challenged, as you know. We had a heck of a time getting this going today, but I'm glad we did finally.
Well, you did two films with him, Spider Baby and Pit Stop, so obviously you had a good working relationship with Jack Hill.
I love Jack. Sadly, well, the girl Mary Mitchell who played Anne, the secretary, and I are we are the only two still alive from that movie, and so it makes me sad that Lon Chaney and Jill Banner never got to see the popularity. Of course, Sid did, but as everyone knows, we lost him, and that was a huge loss. He was such a terrific guy, and he loved his fans. And so, for those of you who were fortunate enough to get his autograph, you can attest to that because he was so appreciative of his fans, of which he had many for
Hmm.
sure. And as a matter of fact, Greg, I'm getting ready to do a little cameo. They're doing a remake of Spider Baby. And Ron Chaney, who is Lon Chaney Jr.'s grandson, will be playing the role of Bruno.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, so, and Jack Hill is the executive producer.
Hmm.
And this filmmaker named Dustin Ferguson, who has done hundreds of these movies, he's putting this little movie together. And I'm going this weekend, as a matter of fact. I'm just doing a little cameo they wrote in for me because when Jack Hill contacted me and said that they were going to be doing the remake and they wanted me to be in it, I thought, gosh, I don't know what I could play in it because obviously, I'm 1,000 years old now and I couldn't go back and play the part of Elizabeth. And I thought, well, there's no other roles in it for me. I don't know what I would be doing in it. But they were nice enough to write in a little cameo where I play a woman from the Child Protective Services, and I go there to check on the married children. So we're doing that this weekend, and then they're hoping to have it out by the fall and for like a limited theatrical release, and then of course it'll go to DVD and streaming and all of that. So I'm anxious to meet Dustin because we've had conversations and, we're emailing and all that. And I was so thrilled that he wanted me to be in the movie because Spider Baby is very near and dear to my heart. And the fans for Spider Baby are unbelievable. And I just wish so much that Jill and Lon Chaney could see now the popularity of it. I mean, it's global. I got a fan letter last week, believe it or not, from the
Hmm.
Czech Republic. And also, I get them from the UK and Germany. I got one from Holland. I got one from Slovenia, Sweden, and even Hong Kong. And it's all about Spider Baby. And it's just so exciting to me. I'm so touched when people really embrace the movie, and I'm just overwhelmed that they love Spider Baby.
Who'd you say the other one live from the film is still?
Mary Mitchell, she played Anne, the secretary.
Okay, yep, okay.
Yeah, but we're the only two left, which is really, and of course, Jack is still alive
Yeah.
and well, and I'm so glad that he was on your show too. He's such a terrific guy, and he was nice enough to cast me, as you said, in Pit Stop as well um, with Sid Haig, and that was a joy to do.
I should see if Mary Mitchell's somewhere online. I'll see if she'll want to come on here.
Yeah, I haven't
Further.
seen her in a long time. She's a
Yeah,
terrific lady, beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, Baby, very interesting little concept, especially you got some, especially the spider web concept, so to speak, that
Yeah.
goes into play in this movie, and
Yeah.
little things that they need to cover up.
I know. It's such a campy film, and I mean, even though like we kill people, it's not really a slasher film. You never see, and all the little innuendos that they put in there, like when he says there'll be a full moon tonight, and those kind. And I think people probably already know that Lon Chaney sang the theme song, which is really cool. And he was
Hmm.
he was such a terrific man. I adored him. So I can't wait to meet his grandson Ron, who will, as I said, be playing Bruno.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over to your because I got you on Wikipedia here, but I need to look up your IMDb here because I got your main stuff on here.
Oh,
But it's like, yeah, because I'm seeing some upcoming stuff. This is stuff they don't have listed. Yeah, so wow, Spider Baby, they're going to be doing a remake of.
yeah, isn't
Well,
that cool?
you know what? If they do it right and they do it well, I say go for it.
Yeah,
It's
well,
when
that's what
it's
Dustin said. Yeah.
yeah, but it's when they do it wrong. That's when it all falls apart.
Well, he's got Jack Hill's blessing, and Jack
Yeah.
approved the script, and he had to do a few rewrites to make it the way that he wanted it. And like Dustin said, he's not there to try to make it better than the original Spider Baby, but more of a tribute and honor of Spider Baby. So it should be fun, and I'm really excited about it. And Rob Zombie contacted me.
Hmm.
He's doing some kind of an album or something about Spider Baby. I'm not sure, but he wanted to include me on that. So I'm just so grateful that Spider Baby lives on all this time and that the fans love it. So
That's interesting because Rob Zombie, in many ways, revitalated Sid Haig with Devil's Rejects and
yeah,
playing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I really miss Sid. I know the fans do too. He was just a fun guy and just a wonderful man. And I'm so glad that I'm still in touch with. Sorry, my phone.
Nope, you're fine.
It's probably a scam call. I get a lot of them. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
same here.
sorry. I'm sorry. I don't do a lot of Zoom calls. So I forgot to turn it off. But
It's okay.
anyway, sorry about that. So
Yeah. Well, you went from, cause Spider Baby. How old did you say when you did Spider Baby?
I think I was like 20. 2 or something like
Oh,
that.
okay. So you weren't real young when you did that one. Okay.
In my 20s, yeah.
Okay.
So,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, did your folks let you go to the premiere? But I guess you were old enough.
Yeah, I was in my 20s, but anyway, so yeah, Spider Baby still lives on, and now they've got all this merchandise. They've got t-shirts and mugs and pillows and shower curtains and phone covers, and it's just crazy. It's just mind-boggling to me. I had no idea they did all that. But anyway, so.
Oh, I had the dates mixed up. Okay, Spider Baby came out in 1967, so you did that 10 years after you did Summer Love and Old Yeller.
Summer Love. Yeah, well, Old Yeller, I was like 12 or 13 or something. And
Okay.
with the fan mail that I get, and I'm always so touched when people reach out to me because I don't know why they do, but I'm glad that they do. The ones that they most remember me for are Spider Baby, Old Yeller, and then Star Trek because they did an episode of
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek. And in August, I'll be doing the Star Trek convention at the Rio in Las Vegas. So looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
What's interesting with Old Yeller, because I get the message behind it. I always find it funny when I hear people, activists out there protest R-rated movies. And I know it was a different time, but I look at Old Yeller and I'm like, should that really be a G-rated film?
I know it's pretty, I don't know if they still do, but I know for years that they would show it in elementary schools. And Tommy Kirk, the one who played Travis in that, the one who shoots Old Yeller, he lived
Hmm.
here in Las Vegas. And we remained friends all these years. He was such a wonderful guy.
Hmm.
And he used to come over. I'm a widow, and he was a bachelor, so we were always friends. And he would come over for dinner and things. And his take on it was he said he thought it was good that they would show it in elementary schools because it teaches children about love and loss and how life goes on, and it's not about replacing an animal, but there's another animal that you can love and give a home to. So that was his philosophy. And then mine, I agree with all that, but on the other hand, I think it's kind of traumatic for little kids to see. And you know, in fact, I'll tell you a cute story. I was doing a little convention a couple years ago, and there was a little girl in the front row, and they were asking me questions, and we were talking about Old Yeller, and so I happened to mention that Tommy Kirk and I were good friends,
Hmm.
and that he would come over for dinner and everything. So all of a sudden, this little girl raised her hand, and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure, honey. What?" So she said, "Well, that boy that you're talking about, Travis, he shot Old Yeller." And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Well, how could you still be friends with him?" It was so cute because I guess she thought he really shot him. But anyway, because I've had grown men come up to my table if I'm, doing an autograph thing, and they go, "I can't watch Old Yeller. It's too sad." So, and that dog, for people who are animal lovers, would like to know that he was a rescue, and they
Hmm.
got him out of an animal shelter. His real name was Spike. And, with Lassie and Rin Tin Tin, they would have a lot of German Shepherds and a lot of collies because basically they all pretty much look alike. And they would bring in whichever dog at the time did best, whatever it was that they were looking for. And, like maybe one could sit up better, the other could, fetch better or whatever. And so with Old Yeller, they only had one because they got him out of an animal shelter. So he did everything, and he was such a great dog.
Hmm. Yeah, I would think today that Old Yeller would probably be rated PG.
Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
it's very moving, but it's still, from what somebody told me, it rates, in the top 100 of still from movies that people rent and watch. And there's,
Yeah.
you know, so many, like that show Friends, they did an episode where Phoebe doesn't understand why they're watching Old Yeller and they're crying because apparently her mother would never let her see the end. It was really cute. And there's been cartoons about it and jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been referenced in a couple of different movies. So I feel so fortunate that I was a
Oh,
part of.
Bill Murray did a whole thing about it in Stripes.
Right, right. Yeah, I know. And
Yep.
as most people know, sadly, Tommy Kirk passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And we were getting ready to do an Old Yeller reunion. There's a convention in Los Angeles called the Hollywood Show. And
Yep.
so we were scheduled to go there, but it was COVID. And so Tommy said that his doctor, because Tommy was, almost 80, and they said that it wouldn't be wise for him to go, even though people were wearing masks. They just didn't want him to be around a lot of people. And so we postponed it, and we were supposed to go in January of not this past year, but the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, he had a heart attack in September. So we never got to do the reunion because now I'm the only one left and can't do a reunion of one. So it's really sad. And I have to tell you that when he passed away, I was inundated with emails and from people I don't even know. And I don't even know how they got my email, but I'm glad they did. But I can't tell you, Greg, how many of them said that they were able to come out because of Tommy, because, it was well known that Tommy was gay. And because of him, people said they were able to come out and they looked up to him as a mentor. And I got so many emails in reference to Tommy and about how loved he was. And the sad part for me is that I don't even think he knew totally how much he was loved by his fans because he really was.
And he was in Swiss Family Robinson as well. I mean,
Right.
yep.
And Shaggy Dog, and he did a lot
Yep.
of Disney films.
He did a
And
lot of stuff for Disney, absolutely. But
mhm.
yeah, Old Yeller definitely has one because I've got a cat, so I get
Oh,
it.
I have
Nobody
a
want
cat.
Yeah, oh yeah. Mine's studying up on getting his PhD in laziness. I think
I
he's
love it.
I Yeah, I think he's overstudying it.
Oh, what's his name?
Skittles.
Giddles? Oh, how cute.
Skittles, yeah, he's a
How
black and
cute.
white cat
I have a
named after
black
the
and
most.
white.
Yeah, yeah, he's a rescue.
Good.
Actually, my parents used to have him, and now
Oh,
I've got him. And I'm trying to figure out if I do the move to Toronto. It's like, yeah, I figure out the process of taking Skittles.
oh, you have to. I mean,
Oh
they're your
yeah.
family. It's like your child. I know I have three rescues. I have two little dog rescues. I've got Larry and Betty White, and then my little cat, Harriet, and she's probably 19 by now. My last cat lived to be 22. And
Hmm.
the only downside of having a pet, as my vet said, is when you have to say goodbye to them because it rips your heart out. It truly does. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're my children.
Well, my parents had an Australian Shepherd they had to say goodbye to, and that was hard on them. And my brother and his wife had two ferrets
Oh,
that
really?
yep, and they ended up having to say goodbye to too. So, you know, there's
That's the downside. Yeah, it's
so
not
so
easy, that's for sure.
Skittles is still around.
How
He's
cute.
around here somewhere, but
Don't you just,
but
I mean, they love you unconditionally, animals, they
yeah.
just do. And when I come home and my dog Larry, he goes bonkers. And I always go, nobody has ever been that happy to see me. I mean, it's like, really? He just goes crazy. And it's just the cutest thing.
Isn't it amazing though, Old Yeller all these years like that came out 15 years before I was born. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, because I was born in 1972, so and that came out in 57. So
Yeah, on Christmas Day. And it was
Christmas
so
Day.
funny. Yeah, somebody sent me something they found online when it came out on the what do they call not the billboard, but I can't think of it right now.
Hmm.
Outside where they have the sign. Anyway, it said Old Yeller, and then it said, like, this was a big deal. It said now in Technicolor. Like, oh, okay, that was a big deal back then, I guess. But yeah, it was a long time ago, but I have some beautiful memories from Old Yeller. And I'm just grateful that I had that opportunity to work with such wonderful people.
Yep. And then of course you got to do Spider Baby where you get to do an older role, and work with Jack Hill and you worked with him again on Hit Stop, you know?
Pit Stop, yeah, with
Yes.
that was with Brian Donlevy and of course Sid Haig. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, well, it was Ellen Burstyn, who, is very famous now, but at the time, it was before she was famous, and she went by the name of Ellen McCrae.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, my real brother, George, who sadly has since passed away, he played Ellen Burstyn's husband in that role. And that was a blast doing that. And it's always fun to work with Jack. And I have a cute story about him. I love him. It was a couple of years ago. I don't even remember where we were, but they were showing Spider Baby, and so afterward they invited Jack and me. We were the only two from the movie there, and they invited us to go up to the penthouse thing they were doing. I can't remember now. It was either like a podcast or a local TV show, whatever it was, they wanted to interview us. So we're sitting there on the sofa, and Jack is very sweet guy. He's quiet. He doesn't say a whole lot. He's just sweet and quiet, and he's in his late 80s. And so
Mm-hmm.
anyway, the moderator guy was interviewing us. So he turns to Jack and he says, "Jack, I have to ask you about this." He said, "That movie, Spider Baby, it's such a quirky little bizarre kind of out there strange little movie." And he said, I'm curious, like, how did that come about? What would, make you sit down and write such a movie?" And so Jack goes, "Well, I was smoking a lot of weed back then." It was like, okay, that explains it, I guess. But it was hilarious because that was the last thing they thought would come out of his mouth, and it was so cute. So yeah, he's a great guy.
Absolutely. And of course, you've done a lot of television. Star Trek obviously is a big thing. You get a lot of attention for Star Trek.
Yeah, and I only did one episode, and it wasn't a big deal. It was the second season. It wasn't even all that popular yet, and it was the fans that brought it back because when they canceled it, apparently they just got inundated with all these fans, begging to have it be put back on. So when I did it, it was the second season, and I wasn't fully aware of it because it wasn't that popular yet. So all these years later, it still lives on. It's amazing. And the Trekkies and Trekkers, they're amazing fans as well. They know every episode, they know every character, they know your dialogue, and they're fun to be around. All the people that love Star Trek.
It's an amazing though, you're in you got these cult films you're in, and you're in Star Trek, and you're in TV. It's interesting because you live on in these movies and TV shows. It must be something to be part of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I pinch myself. I feel so blessed and just so grateful, really. And I write a monthly column for a magazine called The Vegas Voice. And now I've become syndicated as of a couple weeks ago. They picked up my column in Idaho and Montana and New York. And it's called Hollywood Memories. And it's online, of course. And then we do these little YouTube segments, and you just have to go to Vegas Voice TV YouTube, and then they have these little videos. So we've done, they're like 10 minutes or so each segment, and we did one on Spider Baby and Star Trek and all these various shows that I've done, and it's been quite fun. And so far, Spider Baby has the most hits. It's amazing to me. I'm so grateful to the fans that they're keeping it going. So we're hoping that this remake will be successful and that people will embrace it like they did the first one.
Talk about your preparations and playing Elizabeth in Spider Baby.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
We filmed the whole movie in like 13 days. And so typically on a film like Old Yeller and those, you work like 3 or 4 months and you become like a family because you're there every day for 3 months and you get to know the crew and everything. Spider Baby was done so quickly. We didn't have a lot of time for like prepping and all that. We all got along great, and working with Jack was a delight. And um, I didn't really get to do a whole lot of preparation. Jack is a wonderful director, so he would kind of tell us what he wanted, and it's kind of campy, kind of little overacting type of thing to make it. Can't be like, I don't know if you remember. There's one scene, and it's really quick where I look at. I think it's right after we do the thing with a pitchfork, and I look into the camera and go like that. And it's so quick. Well, I didn't know because it wasn't scripted. What happened is I forgot my next line. And so I just stopped and made that stupid face, like that. And the camera was still rolling. So then when we had the screening of the movie, that's still in the movie, which is hilarious because I mean it's like just so campy that it worked, but it's quick. You have to look for it, but it's just so funny to me because as I said, it wasn't scripted and I didn't know the camera was still rolling, but I made that stupid face and and that's in the movie. So that was a lot of fun. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I was dying laughing because had no idea they were going to keep because it wasn't supposed to be. And I thought they'd already said cut. So anyway, that's in the film. So the movie is just done in a kind of campy way, tongue in cheek. There's a lot of little innuendos, a lot of little silly, funny,
But those are
it's
fun.
yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I'm sure it's not for everybody because it's a horror film and but for the people who love it, they truly love it. I mean, it's amazing to me, and I'm always so touched when people talk about Spider Baby because it was one of my most fun films to do for sure.
Absolutely. And of course, you played Jolene in Pit Stop. Now, talk about interesting comparing roles here, but two Jack Hill movies, the contrast between your two roles in those two movies.
Yeah, it was quite different. That's
Hmm.
for sure. Again, that was a low budget, and we did it. I think it was longer than 13 days, but it was done quickly. When you don't have a big budget, you can't take all the time that you do typically in the bigger films. But it was especially fun for me because I got to work with my brother, whom I absolutely adored. I it was horrible when he passed away. I didn't think I did. I still miss him, and it's been years. But so that made it extra special for me that Jack cast my brother in it as well. He played one of the race car drivers. And it was one of the last of the black and white films. And for people who have seen it or want to see it or whatever, it's about, as you know, the figure 8 car races. And so a
Hmm.
lot of it, they had to use stock footage of the real thing. And so the stock footage was in black and white. So therefore, Jack decided to film the whole movie in black and white so he could insert the that footage rather than doing it in color. But I think that I really think that movie warranted black and white. I think it's better in black and white. You
You know
know,
what?
I,
It was kind of a smart move for him to do that too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Jack's brilliant, and he has a huge fan base as well. People love him, and he's great with the fans. So anyway.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, you've done, of course, television, and we've talked Star Trek. Is anything else that, and you've had a lot of television, what stands out to you that you've done that you look back the most fond of in terms of your TV roles?
Oh gosh, Greg, I feel so fortunate because they were all fun for me. I enjoyed all of them, but of course, Old Yeller stands out because I'm a huge animal lover, and when I was doing Old Yeller, they were doing the Mickey Mouse Club. So I got to have school with all the Mouseketeers, and to some of them I'm still in touch with today. And Sharon Baird, who is she's one of my very best friends in the world. We talk like every day. She lives in Reno, and as you know, I live in Las Vegas. And we just did that little festival recently with Carolyn Grimes, who you interviewed, and
Yeah.
some other people. And but also Leave It to Beaver, because back then I, along with every other teenage girl in America, had a huge crush on Wally Cleaver. So getting to work with him, that was that was one of the highlights of my, not just my career but my life, because Tony and I stayed friends up until the time he passed away last year. And in fact, he wrote the foreword for my book. I have an autobiography that's available on Amazon, which is called Real Tears Take Two. And it's a little play on words because, for whatever reason, it seemed like almost every role I was ever cast in, I would have to cry. And back then, because I'm so old, a lot of the film was done on film reels, where now, of course, everything's digital and all that. But so it's spelled Reel, Real Tears. It's a little play on words because I used to always cry, and people would say, were those real? Or, did they put the tears in your eyes or whatever? And they, I don't know. My brother used to tease me, and he'd say, "Oh, you cry at supermarket openings." So, because I'm very emotional. So it was never hard for me to cry. And so that's what my book is called. And Tony wrote the foreword. And when he passed away last year, it was devastating to so, and oh my gosh, he had so many fans all around the world. And I'm still good friends with his wife, Lauren. And that was a huge, huge loss. He was one of, did you ever get to meet him or interview him?
No, I
Well,
didn't.
I wish you could have, because he truly was one of the most humble, down to earth, unassuming, sweet, kind human beings that I've ever known in my life. And he never, ever said an unkind word about anyone or anything. He was just the sweetest. Yeah, I miss him a lot. And I miss Tommy. And it's sad, we've been losing so many people lately. And so, we just have to be grateful for every day. And because we're not promised tomorrow. So
Well, I'd be open to having his wife on here. I do tribute interviews when people passed away. Like I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter's been on the show here.
nice.
Audrey Hepburn's eldest son's been on here.
Really?
Bela Lugosi Jr., Sarah Karloff. Um, I've been in contact with Victoria Price. Haven't cemented that yet, but working on it.
Well,
But
that's wonderful. Well, I sure
yeah.
appreciate that you invited me to be on your show. I'm honored that you asked me. So thank you for that.
Well, we got to do a shout out to Bob. Who's Bob that helped
Oh,
you out there?
he's my friend. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like a computer techie. I don't know how he does all this, but whenever I need help, because I'm alone, I'm a widow, and um, techie is, I'm not, well, we had all the problems getting online. Um,
Yeah.
and he always comes to my rescue. He's a wonderful man and a dear friend. And so I always call him and say, help. And so he got us online, you and me. So that was good.
Yep. Well, you know what? That is pretty awesome, and special thanks to him for because I
Yeah,
was
thank
kind
you
of
for
lost on this.
underwriting. Oh gosh.
Yep. So I'm hoping if I do the move to Toronto, I'm hoping my brother will be able to do the same thing. I'm sure he
Yeah.
can, but again, he works as well, and I don't know. It's quite a transition, but you mentioned the conventions. Now, I started doing the conventions in 2017. Speaking of Toronto, I fell in love with it when Lisa Langlois, a Canadian actress, invited me to assist her at a horror film convention. And
Oh,
it was the first time I'd ever traveled like that, and I fell in love with it, and I enjoy the conventions, and I believe I'm going to be doing another one with her this fall.
Oh,
And
really?
and one thing I like to ask people if our convention goes, what's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Um, their face. What do they do? I don't know. It's yeah, it's cute. It's really sweet. Yeah, somebody asked me to sign their cheek, and with a, yeah, it's whatever people like. I'm always happy to oblige. So far, it's never been anything too weird that I couldn't do. Like they wanted me to do a lip print on their cheek, and then sign it. But I mean, it washes off, so I don't know why they wanted that, but that was probably the strangest thing. But speaking of horror conventions, I'm supposed to do Chiller. Have you heard of that
I've heard
convention?
of it. I've never
Yeah,
been
in
there to it, but
October.
I've heard of it. Yep.
It's supposed to be huge. They say they get like 15 to 20,000 people. So I'll be going there with some friends of mine that you might want on your show. There's Cynthia Pepper, who was in Kissin' Cousins with Elvis, Sharon
Okay.
Baird, Sharon Baird, who was one of the original Mouseketeers, Mimi
Okay.
Gibson, who was the little girl in Houseboat, and Lauren Chapin, who was the little girl in Father Knows Best. She and I have been friends since I did an episode of Father Knows Best right back in the 50s. And so they're all really good friends, and we're all supposed to be there the end of October. So that
I
should be fun.
I'd gladly have them on. Houseboat. That's with Cary Grant.
Right. And Mimi
Uh,
Gibson played his daughter, and she was just one of the cutest little girls ever, and the fabulous child actress. And she did many, many things. And so Mimi and Sharon and I are right now in the process of they're trying to get funding for us to do a documentary about three child actors, and it's called Here's Looking at You Kids. So we're hoping that that will happen. And it's just nice to be friends with people for as long as, we have. Like Sharon and I go back 66 years.
hmm
And yeah, it's a blessing for sure. So,
Oh yeah. Put them in touch with me. I'll gladly have them on here.
okay, terrific. And wasn't it Tommy Kovacs who suggested me
Yep.
to you?
Yep. Tommy
Hi,
Kovac. Yep.
Tommy. Hi, Tommy. Love you, Tommy. Yeah, that was sweet of him. That was really nice of him too.
Well, he's
Um,
been struggling to get Jack Hill. He has, and when I interviewed Jack Hill, he reached out. He said, "Ah, yeah, Jack, you should have Beverly Washburn on from Spider Baby." And I said, "Absolutely,
oh,
absolutely."
great. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
you know,
appreciate that.
yeah. He spoke very highly of you. So yeah.
Thank
So we throw guests back and forth. I don't know why the he's not connecting with Jack Hill, but
you.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I sent him Jack's email, so. Maybe
yeah.
Jack had such a hard time connecting with me on here. Maybe he got frightened.
Well, when you get up in age like we are, Jack, I mean, we're not always the most techie savvy people, but with help, we can do it. So this has been fun doing yours.
Well, you know what? I grew up in a day and age when phones were attached to a wall, where cell phones were at the side of a road, and it's a big box that sometimes Superman came out of.
Right,
Um,
right.
you know, um, uh, a lot of stuff different. I've actually, it's funny. It's funny because I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 70s and the 80s and some of the 90s, and I hear people all the time complain. They say, well, if only things were like, I wish things were like in the 70s. I wish things were like in the 80s. I get it. We had some great movies. We had some wonderful music back then. I get it. And I have some great memories back then. Would I want to go back there? No, because I got a little cell phone here that's like when I was in Toronto last, I came out of a mall at the wrong end and I was lost.
Mm.
Now, back in the 70s and 80s, I would have panicked.
You'd still be searching, right?
Yeah. Here, I just typed into my phone, where am I supposed to be? And I followed the blue line.
That's amazing. I know. I don't understand all that. It's cool though. It's amazing. I just wonder how far they'll take it. 50 years from now, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Oh, they might be in Blade Runner Back to the Future territory then, who knows?
Yeah, could be.
But it's nice that a lot of these classic movies are being preserved and still continue to be enjoyed and studied.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for, TCM and Antenna and MeTV and all those retro channels that are bringing back all the old TV shows. I know you had asked me what some of my favorites were, and one, of course, I have to mention is an episode of Wagon Train that I did with Lou Costello, and it was called the Tobias Jones Story, and it was recently on one of those Western retro channels, and it was the only dramatic role that he ever did, and he was one of my all-time favorites and just the sweetest guy. And it shows how times have changed because the episode, I play like a runaway, and he's an alcoholic, and we're stowaways. And we had met up, and then we're traveling together. And so here's this little girl, I was like 12, and I'm traveling with a man. And nobody thought twice about it because back then it was totally innocent. But in today's world, you couldn't have an episode like that. It would be totally inappropriate to show a little girl traveling with a man. It just that would not fly now. So it was a different era, a different time, and things change. So, but that was a good episode. Working with him was he was fabulous. I adored him. And Jack
Absolutely.
Benny too. I was lucky enough to work with Jack Benny. It's on YouTube. You just punch in Jack and the little girl, and it's a thing where I come. They had me planted in the audience, and I come up and ask for his autograph, and then there's this whole bit. And Jack Benny he was one of my favorites as well, very generous. And he always played the stingy tightwad, and he was one of the most generous. He gave me a beautiful St. Christopher one year for my birthday, and he sent flowers when I had my appendix out in the hospital. He gave me a beautiful string of pearls for Christmas one year, and he was so generous. And when my daddy was in the hospital, he actually sent his own private physician to check on my dad at his expense. And what made it so wonderful is that he didn't do it for the accolades or to be in the paper or have people think how wonderful he would. Nobody knew that he did that except my family. So he did it from his heart. And I'll never forget that. It was
Oh,
really,
that's wonderful.
yeah, very special man. And Loretta Young, can't forget her. She was like a mentor, a mother to me. And yeah, I feel so fortunate to have worked with so many icons, really. And as I said, I at the time I didn't get it. I was too young to appreciate it. But I'll tell you, Greg, I really do appreciate it now. And I
Absolutely.
appreciate I appreciate the fans too. I'm always amazed and surprised when somebody comes to ask for my autograph because I go, why? Why do you want my autograph? I'm nobody. And they say, oh, thank you for being here and all that. And it's so sweet. And I always think it should be the other way around, that we should be thanking all of you, all the fans, because without the fans, we'd have no reason to do what we do or be where we are at these conventions. So I just think the fans they're the ones that need to be thanked more so than thanking us.
It's interesting you say that because I heard a story about when they first got the Shining twins at a convention, the
Yeah.
twins from The Shining, and they didn't, apparently, according to the story, they didn't know why anybody would want their autograph because they're not on screen very long. Well, it's so iconic. Of course, they get there and there's a huge lineup for them,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No.
it's like, of course, and when you're in iconic moments or even iconic films, yeah, people want to meet you. People want to. It's like touching a piece of that film. It's amazing.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah. I'm always touched when fans come up and remember certain movies or TV shows and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's another convention I'll be doing in June. It's in Mars, Pennsylvania, and it's called Monster Bash. And it's very cool. I've been there before, and the fans there, they come every year. They're so loyal. They all wear their little orange bash shirts. And Ron Adams, who's the promoter that puts it on, he puts on an amazing convention. On one night, he orders like 400 tacos and puts them out, and it's for all the attendees, the people that pay to get in, and they just keep eating these free tacos until they're gone. And then the next night he orders these giant cakes, and it's all free to the people that come, and he just goes the extra mile to take care of the fans that come. And it's a wonderful convention. And same with the Mid-Atlantic one that Martin Grams puts on. He puts on a fabulous one. I did that one last year, and people come from all over the world. It's just amazing when they do that. So,
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's wonderful having you on here
Thank
today.
you.
And oh yeah, and again, another shout out to Bob for
Yeah, thank you, Bob, if you're watching. So
yep.
does this go on live, or is this something that comes on later?
Th this comes on later, It'll be unlisted on YouTube for a while because one of the things I learned whenever I started my podcast at the CHSR when I did it there, my former station manager said, when you do an interview, don't put it up right away. Save some for a rainy day. And well, the rainy day turned out to be COVID because when COVID happened, I had about 30 guests waiting to come on the show, and I had no way of doing it until I discovered Zoom and got hooked up to that. But I was lucky enough to have about 150 so interviews in my backlog to go public. Now, the unlisted ones I always send to the guests so that they can post them, so that they can see them, you know?
Okay. Well,
Yep,
I don't know how to do social media. I'm old. I don't do Facebook and Twitter and all those, but I'm just happy I got on Zoom today. So, but I mean, I go on my computer and stuff. I can do emails, but I'm not a techie. So, but yeah, I would love it if you'd send a copy or however you do it.
I can
So,
do that. Yep, I can
okay.
absolutely do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's some of them that are unlisted that got a ton of views just because they posted them out early, and then when it does go public, it gets a lot even more than that.
Hmm.
So so it
Well,
works out that way. Yep. That
that's
way,
nice.
if I'm in a bind, I got something to back up on.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, I certainly appreciate you having me on your show. It's been really fun talking to you and getting to meet you via Zoom. Maybe one day we'll meet in person. That would be
I
fun.
hope so. That would be fun. Yep,
I hope so too.
absolutely. Well, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure.
Yep. Just
What do
state
you?
your name. Just state your name and that you were Elizabeth in Spider Baby,
Okay.
and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay. Want me to do that now or
Yep. Go for it.
I'm sorry, Greg, what's your last name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert. I forget. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Beverly Washburn. I played Elizabeth in Spider Baby, and you are listening to Greg Gilbert's Python
Paradise.
Paradise.
There you go. And love your red hair.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks again
Yeah.
for having me on the show, and thanks to whoever's watching this for sticking it out with us. Sometimes I tend to ramble on too long, but
Oh,
it's
people
fun.
want to hear you, not me. So hey, no,
Well,
there's no rambling here.
okay,
You're
thank you,
good.
Greg. Okay, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I hope our paths will cross in person one day.
Absolutely. Well, God bless you. Thank you so
Thank you. You too,
much.
honey. Thanks you. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.